Now, before we get to the modified internal rate of return, I need to set up the lecture for explaining why we do a modified internal rate of return. And in doing so now, I'm going to go through an example of a project that we're looking at, and we're going to calculate net present value, we're going to calculate internal rate of return. In the next video, we're going to calculate profitability index and the payback technique. Then we'll discuss why we calculate a modified internal rate of return. What's the reasoning for that? Now, initially now, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about net present value and internal rate of return. We have a project here that we estimate will cost us $100,000 today. From that investment now, we expect to get cash inflows of $22,251 every year for 10 years. The firm's weighted average cost of capital, 8%. Now, to calculate net present value, let's remember that net present value is the present value of the inflows minus the present value of the outflows. Now, the inflows in this project are these cash inflows here, $22,251. That's an annuity. We get that every year for 10 years. To find the present value of an annuity, we'd multiply 22,251 times our PV IFA with N equal to 10 and I equal to 8%. Now that would give us the present value of the inflows. What we subtract from that now is the initial investment, or what we call the present value of the outflows, which for this project is $100,000. If we do that, we find that the present value of the inflows is $149,306.44. Now, just program note, when we do the profitability index, we're going to need that number. That's the present value of the inflows. From that, we subtract the present value of our outflows, which is $100,000, and we discover that not only is it a positive net present value, but it's a positive $49,306.44. So would we accept this project based on net present value? The answer is yes. The reason that you would is because if we did this, that means that the value of the firm, the wealth of the shareholders would increase by $49,306. That's net present value. It tells you the change in the value of the firm if you make the investment. Internal rate of return. Now, internal rate of return is defined as the interest rate that sets the present value of the inflows equal to the present value of the outflows. In this case, our inflows are $22,251. That's an annuity, which we find the present value of by multiplying it by our PV IFA. N's equal to 10, but it's the little I that we're actually looking for. And whatever that is on the left-hand side, we want it to equal the present value of the outflows, the initial investment, which is $100,000 in this case. As you look at this little formula here now, you should note that the unknown is the interest factor. Now, to solve for the interest factor, we would take $100,000 and divide by 22,251. If you do that, you'll find that the interest factor that sets the present value of the inflows equal to the present value of the outflows is 4.4942. Now, as I talked to you about rate of return before, this is not the rate of return. This is the interest factor. We're looking for the interest rate associated with that. If you go to your PVIFA table, go down the left-hand column till you get N equal to 10, and go across till you find an interest factor of 4.4942. You'll find that interest factor in the 18% column. Now, what that means is that the internal rate of return on this project is 18%. That's greater than the cost of capital, which is 8%. Therefore, it also tells us to accept the project. Now, lots of times in corporate America and in business, people don't like to use, finance people don't like to use net present value. The reason is somebody's going to ask you to explain this number right here. And this is difficult to explain to somebody who doesn't have a finance background. On the other hand, people tend to intuitively understand rate of return. I'm going to get an 18% return on an investment, I kind of intuitively understand that because I earn rates of return on my savings accounts and my 401k and all that kind of thing. The problem with this, in this case, is this. If you tell your boss that they're going to get an 18% return on this investment, they'll forever remember that. 4 years from now, they might not remember your name, but they're going to remember that you told them they're going to earn an 18% return on this investment. In an earlier video, I told you about the assumptions of net present value and internal rate of return. In order to earn an 18% return on this investment, every year when this project generates $22,251 in cash flow, you have to reinvest it every year to earn 18%. What's the odds of us every year for 10 years earning an 18% return on reinvested capital? Virtually zero. This rate of return right here is a promised return. That's not going to work out here because you can't earn 18% on all the reinvested cash flow. So again, we have an issue here with the reinvestment rate assumption for internal rate of return. This is an issue for us. This is a problem for us. You should not tell your boss, your client, that kind of number. It's not an achievable rate of return. When we get to modified internal rate of return, you're going to see how we adjust this to satisfy our reinvestment rate requirements and get a more reasonable rate of return to associate with this project. But right now, we've got a positive net present value. We've got a rate of return greater than the cost of capital. Both of these would indicate that you would want to accept this project. In the next video now, I'm going to calculate the profitability index, and I'm going to calculate the payback technique, the other two techniques. And then after that, in the second video from now, we'll talk about the modified internal rate of return.